Take a deep breath, take the higher road. That's what they always say, as if they know the way. They won't take it from me. But don't ever doubt yourself, 'cause life ain't just a dream. You made your own, so kick and scream. The people will act with a never-ending force. You never had the chance, so what you waiting for? The day has come, my friend, 'cause this is war. It's time and this is war.
Today, I want to speak directly to the heart of every parent, caregiver, and conscious practitioner out there. For far too long, we've handed our children over to a system that was never built to honor them. A system that reduces vibrant, unique little humans into charts and checklists, where well visits have become little more than vaccine appointments, and genuine concern is too often met with scripted reassurances and pharmaceutical prescriptions. We are witnessing the consequences. Chronic illness in children is no longer rare. It's expected. Developmental delays are dismissed. Allergies, autoimmune conditions, and neurodivergence are normalized. And worst of all, when a parent dares to ask questions, they're treated not as a partner in care, but as a problem. But we're done begging for respect. We need to build something better. It's time to veer away from the traditional pediatric model and create something revolutionary. A model that sees children as whole, sacred beings, not just patients. A model that empowers parents to trust their instincts, honor their values, and make informed decisions without coercion or fear. This is not about rejecting medicine. It's about rejecting control. It's about returning to wisdom, embracing the body's natural design, and surrounding families with providers who listen first. This is about freedom, trust, and truth. And this is how we heal the next generation. You're listening to Nurses Out Loud on America Out Loud Talk Radio. I'm your host, Nurse Kimberly Overton. Before we get started today, I do want to encourage our listeners, if you have questions or comments, or perhaps you want to share your own experiences with what you're seeing on the front lines of healthcare, you can now submit those to us directly by visiting our website at nursesoutloud.com. We would love to hear from you. We encourage all of you to engage in the battle and find your voice in this fight. But until you are able to do that, we will continue to be that voice for you. Joining me today is Cathy Meehan, a bold and compassionate voice for medical freedom and parental empowerment. As co-founder of Mindset Kids, a revolutionary pediatric telehealth model rooted in holistic care, Cathy is reimagining what it means to support children's health without coercion, unnecessary interventions, or blind trust in broken systems. Once a pharmaceutical trainer, Cathy had a front row seat to the inner workings of an industry that prioritizes profit over patients. But it was her lived experience, watching her own 5 children suffer from vaccine injuries, that ignited a lifelong mission. Alongside her late husband, renowned medical freedom advocate Dr. Jim Meehan, she became a powerful force in the fight for truth, transparency, and true informed consent. Today, Cathy continues his legacy while carving her own path. She's the host of the Meehan Mission podcast, a public speaker, grandmother of thriving unvaccinated children, and steward of a family compound built around faith, resilience, and natural living. Cathy, welcome. Thanks so much for being here.
Wow, Kimberly, what a great introduction. I appreciate that so very much.
Thank you. I'm so excited to have you here and to learn more and share with my listeners more about Mindset Kids. We briefly met about a week ago, and I had a little bit of knowledge about the organization, but had never really dug deep into what you guys were doing. And I'm just so excited after we spoke and to be able to share that with my listeners. So if you want to kind of just start out with that.
Absolutely. So I really appreciate you also mentioning my late husband, Jim Meehan, MD, who was a force when it comes to informed consent for medical procedures. And I like to start out introducing people to my husband, because really it is because of him that I am on this path And it was really his vision to create an alternative for the pediatric world. And, it really kind of began in college. Jim and I were college sweethearts. I did graduate first in undergraduate, and I tell people I got my PhD, which stands for Put Hubby Through, because while I went into the work as a pharmaceutical rep, while he went on to medical school and then residency. And really, it was an interesting thing. He was an ophthalmologist resident. And so, an ophthalmologist is an eye surgeon. And during his residency, he was also the editor of a journal. It was Ocular Immunology and Inflammation. And what he would do was he would look at studies that were up for publication. And one, well, actually, it was two studies, but one in particular was showing this, vaccination of veterans and retinal bleeding or hemorrhage in the back of the eye. And, up to this point, he was taught vaccines are safe and effective in med school. That's all he was taught. And he thought, it was really interesting. And so he presented it to the senior editor, who said, well, Jim, we really can't publish that study. The pharmaceutical companies really pay for, our education. They pay for the buildings. They pay for so much that we're not going to publish that study. And, that was kind of bothersome to him. But at that time, that wasn't his battle. But the other part of this residency was because he was an ophthalmology resident over at the Children's Hospital. If someone brought in a baby with suspected shaken baby syndrome, the ophthalmologist would be called over to examine the back of the eye. And if there was any retinal hemorrhage, it was basically a check mark that that was shaken baby syndrome. Now, this was kind of like that second thing that Jim was like, wait a minute, these parents are adamant that they didn't lay a hand on the child. There are no bruises. There are no broken bones. Why in the world, should this baby have shaken baby syndrome other than the fact that that had retinal bleeding? So, this was really kind of a wake-up call to him. And again, he was a resident. I think we had 4 children by this time. But the thing that really set Jimmy apart from all other residents, moving on to being physicians, was he was a critical thinker. So he was constantly researching, even after this, because goodness, that was almost 25 years ago when he came across those studies. And then going into around 2013, when our first grandson was born, this kind of was another, wake up call about these vaccinations. And his name was Isaiah. That's our first grandson. And my daughter Allie had a hospital birth. And shortly after the birth, the nurse came into the room, the patient room, and was like, here, sign this. And it was a clipboard with a consent to receive vaccinations. And Jim was actually there and was like, what is she signing? And the nurse said, well, it's for his vaccinations. Well, Jim was like, why are you vaccinating this itty bitty tiny baby, right? My daughter didn't test positive for anything. And they were like, well, no, we give everybody Hep B, right? And so after some words, it ended up my grandson did not get vaccinated. And, we left the hospital and that was that. And then 6 weeks later, my daughter Allie brings Isaiah to his pediatrician for a follow-up. And at this appointment, they literally bully my daughter Allie, and she is bawling because, they're saying like, we're going to call, Child Protective Services if you don't vaccinate your baby and catch him up and all of this stuff. So Allie, gets on the phone, calls Jim, and she's like, Dad, they're threatening me. And so Jim, for those of you who know Jim, he's like, you tell them I am a 5th degree black belt and I will be over there in 2.3 seconds if they don't let you walk out of that office immediately. So Allie walked out of that office and never went to a pediatrician again because, number one, we don't go to a pediatrician unless our child is sick. But I just want to say, this was really kind of that wake up call. Again, we always look at these things that I want to say they're almost like signs from God, if you want to call it that, about, how he's directing our path into where we are today. Because another one of those signs was in 2016. And you might tell me, Kimberly, are you familiar with the documentary called Vaxxed?
Yes, I am. Absolutely.
Yes. So Vaxxed came out, and we were invited to go to the premiere of it down in Oklahoma City. And at that time, you have to realize Jim was one of the very few doctors that really spoke up and had an independent voice because we were not associated with hospitals. He was not a member of a big clinic. And so having an independent practice, we could kind of, go do these kinds of things. So we go. And that was a life-changing moment because when we walked out of Vaxxed, Jim was like, I cannot be quiet. This, all of these signs and hints that I've been seeing, plus the research he was doing, because at this time, he's starting to, do his own digging. And the whole Vaxxed movement, and for any listeners who haven't watched Vaxxed yet, I highly recommend it. It's the first one is from Cover Up to Catastrophe, and it is the documentary of the whistleblower named Dr. William Thompson from the CDC, who literally came out, reached out to Brian Hooker, and said, hey, we destroyed the data covering up the association with autism and the MMR vaccine. And this study was very pivotal for the CDC because up until this moment, there was this huge debate. Do vaccines cause autism? I mean, it was just everywhere. Does it? Does it not? We want to know. And so the CDC said, okay, we are going to do the study of all studies, and we are going to prove that vaccines do not cause autism. Well, it took them 4 years to do the study and release the data. And there was so much manipulation behind the data because when the final study came out, it said basically that the MMR vaccine does not cause autism. However, if you watch the documentary Vaxxed, you'll have the confession of Dr. William Thompson stating that they destroyed all the data. And not only that, but he kept a copy of the data and has since released that data, which all of the information comes out in Vaxxed. So again, if you haven't watched Vax yet, I highly recommend that.
And
So
I'm going to make sure that we include a link to that documentary in the show notes that will accompany this episode because honestly, everybody needs to see it.
yeah, it's one of those when people ask me about vaccinations, I usually recommend that as one of the first documentaries that they watch because that really is kind of like that one will open your eyes so that you will actually, because everybody thinks we're a bunch of conspiracy theorists, running around with our heads cut off. But, if they can see that documentary, then they're like, oh, wait, maybe they are telling the truth. And to me, that's kind of like almost a door that opens for them. But in 2019, so just a little background again. So, I was a pharmaceutical rep and then we had all these kids. And so I eventually stayed home and while Jim had his practice and stuff, but the kids were grown. And in 2019, I came back to the practice to work because my degree was in business and marketing. And I always say, I was the administrative side of the practice and Jim obviously was the medical side. But the interesting thing happened in 2020, and I'm guessing you probably know what happened in 2020.
Oh, yeah.
It was COVID. So COVID hit, and we were already primed for telemedicine. And again, telemedicine is one of those things that God put into our lives. So we knew how telemedicine worked. We had the equipment, we had the know-how. We already were contracting with other physicians. So we already had this, like, if you want to call it like the backbone of our mindset kids, because we were already doing this for our adult clinic. But along with COVID, came a few things. The Reawaken tour, where Jim would, it was Clay Clark's group that would go across the nation, and Jim would speak out against the horrific problems with wearing face masks and talk about the COVID vaccine and all of that. And we just met so many fellow warriors, and it was really a great thing to bring like-minded people together. And one of those fellow warriors was Dr. Paul Thomas. And do you know who Paul Thomas is,
Oh,
Kimberly?
yes, I
Yes.
absolutely do.
Okay, good. Most people know when you talk about medical freedom and pediatrics, you know who Paul Thomas is.
Yeah.
And I do want to say that his latest book, Vax Facts, that's another game changer too, that I highly recommend to people that are looking for information behind vaccines. So we became really good friends with Paul, and we kept saying, okay, so when is somebody going to create, an alternative to this pediatric sick care? Because here's the deal. We have a huge problem when it comes to our children's health. I mean, I find it twofold. I mean, the health is absolutely horrific. And not only that, but when you dig in and you look at the financial bias that some of these pediatricians have and the pharmaceutical companies, those are the two horrible problems. And when we look at the children in the United States, they they face a significantly higher health risk and mortality rate than most or than all other developed countries. It's horrific. So think about it. Infants in the US are 76% more likely to die before their first birthday than other wealthy nations.
Wow.
I mean, that's despicable. I mean, horrible. And part of this leading cause, premature birth complications and sudden infant death syndrome, which a lot of people might recognize that as SIDS, which you have to understand. If you look at any childhood vaccination package insert, which lists side effects that are known for that particular vaccine, SIDS is listed. So I'm not saying that all SIDS deaths might be from vaccinations, but I'm also not going to eliminate that from the realm of possibilities. And you also have to look at the historical number of vaccines. I won't completely give my age away, but, I'm going to say I probably had 5 as a child, and that was in the late 1960s. And then you look at around in the 1980s, we were up to 24 vaccinations. We're talking about for children. And then you go to 2018, and we are over 72 plus the COVID vaccine. And I'll rant on the COVID vaccine in a few minutes. But a lot of people are like, why so many vaccines? And the other thing is, if your listeners are familiar with in 1986, the National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act. Are you familiar with that?
Absolutely.
Yes. I mean, that was a game changer for the pharmaceutical industry. I mean, when you don't have to put any money into safety data or, paying out damages for injuring or killing patients, I mean, it was a given to them. It was like handed over on a golden platter. This is your ticket, your golden ticket to nothing but pure profits. Oh, anyway, so
Exactly.
that's,
I'm hoping that'll be one of the first things on the agenda now that we've got RFK in there at HHS. I'm waiting and hoping that we are going to see a repeal of the 1986 vaccine injury.
yeah, we definitely need something done with that, which is absolutely ridiculous. But I talked about the COVID vaccine, which, oh my gosh, I don't know if everybody knows this, but it is literally on the CDC child schedule at 6 months of age. 6 months. And that's your first dose. And then they want to give you another one 4 weeks later. Which
for a disease that has absolutely like it's the negligible children are at negligible risk for COVID.
absolutely,
And
absolutely.
it doesn't prevent transmission. So you can't even argue, well, they can't have to have it to protect, grandma. It doesn't prevent transmission, which we've been screaming about at Nurse Freedom Network for years now.
Right. And not only that, but if you read through the CDC schedule, they actually recommend 3 doses if the baby or child is immunocompromised, which to me is just
What?
a total
Insane.
whack job and so back ass word. I can't
Well,
believe.
we've never vaccinated children
Yeah,
who are immune compromised. That was the whole argument about why everybody had to get vaccinated for those who couldn't. It was all do
yeah,
your part, do your part. But now all of a sudden we're vaccinating the already immune compromised. Make it make sense.
yeah, yeah. Well, it's absolutely ridiculous. But yeah, so they want to give it to a baby at 6 months, 4 weeks later, and then 4 weeks after that. So I have heard that they're looking into at least eliminating the COVID vaccine off the childhood schedule, which to me, that's very, very important to get rid of that. And also, I just have a word out for any pediatrician that is out there that is vaccinating children with the COVID vaccine. If you happen to hear this, I demand that you be arrested and tried and thrown in jail. Period. No questions asked. If you are a pediatrician vaccinating children with the COVID vaccine, you are wrong. Period. That's all there is to
Amen.
it. That's all there
I've
is to
been
it.
saying that for years. I've been saying,
Yeah.
anyone, any healthcare professional who would even utter the words safe and effective in the absence of any appropriate clinical safety data or anything like that, they should be yes, arrested and brought up on criminal charges.
Absolutely. I mean, I
Absolutely.
would go
Take
as
strip their
far as
licensure.
I'm saying attempted murder. Literally.
Amen. Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree with you 100%.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. So, but and then, as we dig and we research and we look into these things and we see this, golden ticket that big pharma has that now, I mean, it's even worse because we're talking pre-birth vaccines to expectant mothers.
Yeah.
And they want, the whooping cough. Well, you can't just get a whooping cough vaccine. It's it's your, what is it? Tetanus, diphtheria, and pertussis all rolled into one. And pushing the flu vaccine and RSV and COVID and Hep B. And it's the madness has got to stop. So I could go on and on about the horribleness of the vaccines. So,
Oh, I know. We could talk about that. That's like a whole
yeah,
episode in and of
yeah.
itself
So
is
if
talking about that.
yeah,
Um,
if you don't know where I'm going on that, it's just vaccines are horrible. But the other part is
yes.
the financial bias that why we need a new pediatric system is because for so many pediatricians, if you look up their revenue stream, vaccinations are going to make up probably 25 to 30% of their total revenue. And if the vaccine industry collapses like I anticipate it will over the next few years, these pediatricians are not going to be able to keep their practices open. And you have to understand depending on where you get your source and how you're counting, whether full-time or part-time or specialty or whatever, there's around 40,000 pediatricians in the United States. And there is no way that they're all going to be able to stay open as soon as the vaccination revenue, stops. So there's an incentive for them to fight to keep vaccinations and keep the well visits. And we got to go away from that. And the other thing is bonuses from insurance providers, or these pediatricians get pay for performance, basically. So if a certain percentage of their practice is vaccinated, then they get monetary bonuses, and it can range from like $100 to $400 per fully vaccinated child. We know Blue Cross Blue Shield does this. We know Aetna does this. I'm sure there's others. So we have to really, look at this financial bias that pediatricians have and why they want perfectly healthy children to walk into a pediatric office so they can get you on the vaccine schedule. And people are literally getting fired from their pediatricians' offices, or patients are getting fired because they won't follow the vaccine schedule. And have you heard much of that?
I have. I hear this all the time, Cathy. I have parents reaching out to me all the time saying, well, I just, even if they just questioned the vaccines, they are like, well, if you're not going to stay on the CDC schedule, we're going to have to, fire you from the practice. And really, it's because, as you mentioned, if they don't keep, I believe it's a percentage of 63% of your patient population in accordance with the CDC schedule, then they don't get their bonus, and they don't lose it for just that child. They lose the entire bonus. So
Yeah.
yeah, they are not willing to, keep an unvaccinated child on because it affects their bottom line, which is just, to me, is shameful. And I don't understand how this is legal, to be completely honest with you.
Right. Yeah. And that I'm not sure how it is legal, but they're doing it and we know they're doing it. And like I said, with vaccination appointments being such a large part of their revenue stream, I can only imagine, number one, why they are so financially biased not to look at the studies and the data and everything that we now have showing, for example, that the unvaccinated child is far healthier than a vaccinated child. And it's, I mean, thanks to people like, Bobby Kennedy and Brian Hooker and Paul Thomas and James Lyons Weiler, all of these men who have, published the data or written books. And um, it's it's very difficult to try to get someone with a very strong bias to even look at the data from the opposite side, which, you know, I've tried for a long time. I think all of us have tried to, maybe convince or, introduce or, just plant seeds. I always say that that is our obligation in life. It's not to actually get someone to follow our orders, but just to plant the seed of, have you ever looked at what's in a vaccination? Because I know, Jim and I had 5 kids, and all 5 of our kids were vaccinated. And, Jim was in residency and med school during this time. And we look back and they were all sick. They had asthma, they had eczema, they had Macy. She didn't even talk until after she was 3 years old. And I remember the pediatrician said, oh, well, that's just normal because she has siblings. So that's why she doesn't talk. And
You would think
I
that
look
would make her talk sooner because she had people to talk to.
Yes. I mean, I look at my grandkids. I mean, we have our own little study. I've got 7 grandkids that are not vaccinated. And I'm telling you, the little grandkids, they literally absolutely repeat everything that the big kids say. They are talking in full sentences. It's like it was such a cover up, and it wasn't normal to have a 3-year-old that cannot speak. And,
Yeah.
thank God that they all didn't have a significant vaccine industry or industry injury. And, they're all, thriving and very intelligent. But we went through pneumonia, my son hospitalized, and just I look back at the screaming and the headaches and the gut issues that all of my children had. And Jim and I, we were very healthy growing up and as adults, and we ate good food, well, semi-good food, And it just having our own little study comparing our vaccinated children with our unvaccinated grandchildren, it's like night and day.
Yeah.
And I remember the stuff that I heard that, like, oh, give your child Tylenol before you go to the vaccination appointment so that it won't hurt them. Well, my poor baby, Daniel, he's always, telling me, well, mom, the problem's because you vaccinated me when I was a baby, and I did. I literally gave him Tylenol, but no one planted a seed saying, hey, Cathy, do you know what's in a vaccine? And if they would have, I would have researched it. And so I just really, really encourage anyone listening to just plant the seed, and don't be upset if you plant the seed and then the other person still goes ahead and vaccinated, because there's really nothing that we can do about that. I've had moms call and they are just bawling because their child, their grown child, is going to vaccinate their grandchild. And I just let them know that, your job is to plant the seed, and just plant as many seeds as you can, because and we can pray for them, but you can't change what another person's going to do. So,
No, but you're 100% right. It is, the onus is upon us to plant those seeds, ask thought-provoking questions. I always think that helps when we just ask thought-provoking questions of people, like, do you even know what's in these vaccines? Because so many of us, as you mentioned earlier, we are only taught in medical school and nursing school, the only education that we receive on vaccines: safe, effective, and necessary. That's all. But we're
right.
up against a break. And when we come back, we're going to dig into some of the solutions. We've identified the problem, and we are going to dig into the solutions when we come back. America Out Loud Talk Radio plays on the iHeartRadio network. You can also listen on our media player from any web browser, anywhere in the world. We have the best in-class apps available on Apple, Android, or Alexa, 24/7. Great talk radio. All of our shows go to podcast the following day. You can hear them on apps such as Spotify, Stitcher, Pandora, iHeart Podcast, and many more. Be sure to subscribe and rate the show on Apple Podcasts for me. Don't forget to check out our online store at americaoutloud.shop, where you can find all of the products that we represent on our network at a discounted rate, including an incredible line of products from Chemical Free Body. Unlike the majority of supplements you'll find on the market today, with Chemical Free Body, you won't have to worry about harmful ingredients, binders, fillers, or flow agents. Their ultra-safe breakthrough nanosilver technology destroys pathogens, balances the microbiome, and boosts immunity. All of these products are proudly made in the USA and come with an unheard of double your money back guarantee. I've made a twice daily Green 85 drink part of my routine, which has led to a decrease in belly bloat and an increase in my energy throughout the day. Use promo code OUTLOUD to save 20% off the Healthy Gut Bundle. I'll catch you on the other side of this break. Stay with us.
Have you been looking for a healthy snack for on the go, but all the energy and protein bars are just too sweet and full of sugar, preservatives, and mystery ingredients? Well, not all energy bars are soft and sugary. Bear Bars are a crunchy, savory bar made from just 6 simple, natural ingredients. They're plant-based, organic, packed with protein and nutrients, and are low-temp dried for a unique crunch. Most energy bars are based on chocolate or fruit and are held together with syrups and sweeteners, but Bear Bars are a delicious combination of veggies, nuts, and seeds. They're a perfect fast snack for hikes, workouts, and busy moms and dads. To learn more, just visit bearbar.com/outloud and get the exclusive discount just for America Out Loud listeners. That's BEARBAR.com/outloud.
In just 2 minutes per day, you can reclaim your health and vitality and cut your grocery bill in half with one simple, convenient product. Our doctor-formulated Green 85 juice formula's powerful dose of ultra-concentrated essential nutrients stops hunger in its tracks and supplies your cells with what's missing in the grocery store food. It's packed with wheatgrass, chlorella, dandelion, moringa, spirulina, broccoli sprouts, acai berry, beetroot, probiotics, enzymes, vitamins A, D, K, B12, just to name a few. Go to chemicalfreebody.com/outloud today. Get nature's super multivitamin Green 85, empower your immune system, cut down on your grocery bill, and save 20% on your first order.
I've got 2 questions for you. Have you been feeling off since COVID? Are you struggling with lingering symptoms? You're not alone. As Dr. Peter McCullough says, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Introducing the wellness company's Spike Detox Trio. This powerful supplement combines nanokinase, bromelain, and turmeric to support your immune system and fight off harmful spike proteins. Nanokinase improves circulation, while bromelain boosts antiviral defenses, and turmeric reduces inflammation. It's not just another supplement. It's a scientifically backed solution to help you bounce back from COVID. Imagine waking up filled with energy, feeling clear-headed and vibrant again. It's possible with Spike Detox Trio. Reclaim your health now by visiting twc.health/outloud and use promo code OUTLOUD for 20% off your first order right now.
Oral hygiene hasn't changed in 50 years. brush, floss, repeat. We're told to use fluoride, which doesn't really address the acid-creating bacteria. That is where the dentist-recommended Spry Dental Defense System shines. Spry products contain xylitol, a natural sugar which helps get rid of those nasty, smelly, acid-creating bacteria in our mouth. The best way to care for your teeth and gums is by using Spry. The Spry Dental Defense System has a wide variety of products: toothpaste, mouthwash, mints, and chewing gums that are designed to work together to keep your teeth clean and mouth healthy and smelling sweet all day long. To get your oral care back on track in an easy, effective, and very tasty way, switch to Spry today. Ask your dentist about xylitol and the Spry products. Spry can be found online and at all fine natural product retailers.
Only when the government bows to the people will America become great again. This is Malcolm Out Loud here. Join me in pushing back against censorship, my fellow Americans. Right at the top of AmericaOutloud.news are the words: many voices, one freedom, united in the First Amendment. Now is our time, my fellow Americans. AmericaOutloud.news, liberty and justice for all.
Welcome back to Nurses Out Loud on America Out Loud Talk Radio. I'm your host, Nurse Kimberly Overton. Wherever you're listening from today and whatever you're doing, I thank you for giving me the gift of your time. Be sure to make AmericaOutloud.news your daily stop for all the latest news and happenings. We all must do our part and share the stories, the articles, the podcasts, and videos so we can help secure America's future. If you're just joining us, I've been talking with the co-founder of Mindset Kids, Cathy Meehan. Let's jump right back in. Cathy, thank you again for being here.
You bet. Thank you so much, Kimberly, for the opportunity. Because, when we look at the health of our children and the health of our future, we got to stop what we're doing, because whatever we're doing is not working. And basically what we're doing is we are sending perfectly healthy children into a pediatrician's office so that the pediatrician can get them in over and over and over for repetitive visits, for what they call these well visits, which are actually opportunities to vaccinate the children. Yeah. So, whether you believe in vaccination or not, I'm going to side on the fact that with the data we have now, vaccinations, as we are currently doing them and administering them, are the primary cause of the decline in our children's health. So that being the case, I recommend that you stop going to pediatricians' offices and you just keep your babies and your children out of the pediatrician's office. And, but everybody's like, okay, well then what do we do, right? What do we do? I want to know if my child is sick, or I want a place to go if I need care or I have questions. And this all kind of goes back to God giving us, Jim and I, these hints and these clues, and anything from, him being an ophthalmologist and doing the residency program, and, that hint of maybe vaccinations are causing the retinal hemorrhage. And then our grandson, who, my daughter was bullied for not doing the full vaccine schedule, and then the whole vaxxed and everything that's been coming about. And so we were like, okay, nobody is coming up with an alternative. So what if we use our telemedicine know-how, the connections that we've got, the incredible, and I just have to brag on my team over here at Meehan MD. I have the best staff, team players. Everybody is mission oriented. And I mean, I absolutely love coming to work every day because they are so great. And so, in 2023, we really started putting together Mindset Kids. And back in August of 2023, Jim was hosting an episode of The High Wire, which Kimberly, I'm sure your viewers and listeners probably know The High Wire.
Yes.
And, this was one of Jimmy's bucket lists because Dell asked Jimmy, he was like, what do you want to talk about? And Jim's passion was educating people on the use of aborted fetal cells and vaccines. And so he got to do a huge segment on that. And it was during this time when he was prepping for that, he had noticed that he had this like lesion on his tongue, and he thought it was a traumatic ulcerative granuloma, sometimes called a tug. But it was just this bothersome thing, and it irritated him. And this was back in August, and the thing just wasn't going away. It was getting worse. And so finally, in October of 23, he actually had, a biopsy, and he was diagnosed with carcinoma of the tongue. And, you know, nobody, I didn't think, Jim didn't think, none of us thought he would die of cancer. I mean, this was Jim Meehan. He was the beast. He's the one that, I mean, literally every patient, he was like, you make sure you're hard to kill because they're coming after you. And, and so it, it was, it was a shocker. It was a shocker. And, you know, I could have rolled up in a ball and cried and been depressed and, closed the practice. And, hang on.
You're good.
But I didn't. He died in June of 24. And I just knew that the story wasn't over.
No, you're carrying on his legacy.
Yeah, absolutely. We carried on.
Yeah, he was a giant in this movement. I don't even have to tell my listeners. Dr. Jim Meehan was an absolute giant in this movement. He challenged the CDC, exposing fraud, and just giving voice to the silence. He's a personal hero of mine. If you listen to my show at all, you've heard me speak of him many times. I did a tribute to him after he so sadly passed away last year. And we are so appreciative of the work that he's done and the legacy that you carry on now. And our hearts and prayers are with you as you bravely and courageously carry on his mission. We're so grateful.
Thank you for that moment for me to gather my composure.
You are welcome.
Yeah, you bet. So it's like, what do you do? Do you roll up and, just, stop, or do you carry on what Jim started? And, there's no way. He always said, let's just get one more kid, and we have the ability to get way more than one more kid. We want to keep every kid out of the, I say pediatric office. You guys know what I'm talking about. Get away from the pediatrician that believes that, vaccines are the gift of all medicine. And that just drives me crazy when they talk about that. But anyway, but we have to look at all of these kids and parents that are getting fired from their pediatrician's office. We know now that in some areas, 60% or more of parents are questioning vaccinations. Yes, and we have homeschool children. There's like 10 million homeschool children that half of them don't even go to a pediatrician anyway. And, we've got this MAHA movement, and everybody is really starting. I mean, they're reading labels now. I mean, amen. I mean, if Jim saw all that, I mean, he's dancing in heaven. I know it. I know it. I know it. I know it. But so the thing of Mindset Kids is, okay, well, let's think. I mean, Kimberly, let me ask you, what did your grandmother do when her kids had a fever? Did she run them to the ER?
Oh, absolutely not. We let those things burn. That's an absolute, there's a reason when we have a fever, it's an immune response, and there's a reason. Let it burn and let it do its job. And I think that generational wisdom has been lost.
It has, it has. And that's the goal of Mindset Kids, is to bring back that generational wisdom that has been lost over the generations, because there are so many non-emergent ailments that parents, with just a little bit of support and education, can handle those, and they don't have to run to the pediatrician. They don't have to run to the emergency room for all of these things. And I start with so I'm just going to start with the acronym mindset, which was, Jim created this years ago, and it was an acronym that we used for our adult patients. And it stands for microbiome, inflammation, nutrition, detoxification, sleep, exercise, and total hormone balance. So really, if you can focus on those 7 key elements, that's pretty much going to help you really create wellness, not only for your children, but even for yourself. So what we want to do with Mindset Kids is, it was created to help educate, provide resources. We do webinars. We have a community. We have a private Facebook group. I have this amazing advisory board who Dr. Paul Thomas is on our advisory board, Dee Dee Hoover, Brian Hooker. I just did a podcast with Larry Pilevsky. Everybody knows Larry too.
Yeah.
And we do like special Q&As and, monthly Zoom calls. We've got journals. We push out education material. But the whole idea is we want parents to be able to handle these non-emergent ailments. And then if they need backup, then we have a pediatric like-minded physicians where they can call in and we'll get them scheduled with a pediatrician. But the point is you don't have to run to a pediatrician for every ailment of your child. And if you just need backup, then we're here and to help empower parents, right, with this knowledge and the support and the tools so that they make the best decisions for the well-being of their kids. And, and I just go back to what an awesome team that we have here. Meg Sutton is our natural health consultant, and she created, in collaboration with my husband Jim and with Dr. Paul Thomas, this amazing Mindset Kids natural health guide. And every parent gets a natural health guide, and it has like, I don't know, maybe 20 ailments, anything from insect bites to fevers to constipation to sleep issues to ear infections. And each section will give like natural remedies and how to ease symptoms. And then it'll have a section on when to call the doctor, specifically. And just, for backup, there's little recipes in here. It's just I'm not going to lie. I use this for some of, the adult kids in my family. They have an issue. Yeah. And then we also supply every family with this handy little home kit. And the home kit is so that you've got the natural health guide for reference. You get a little digital thermometer. You've got a pulse ox so you can measure your child's heart rate and their oxygen saturation. I joke because, you have the little measuring tape, because everybody can measure their child's circumference of their head and their length.
Amen. No rocket science there.
It is not rocket science, and weigh them. And then you can chart it in your electronic medical records, and you'll have a record of it. And
I say this all the time, Cathy. I say, parents are perfectly capable of weighing and measuring their baby and tracking milestones all on their own. You do not need to go to a pediatrician for that.
No, you don't. You do not. And that's what we want. Yes, there is a need for pediatricians. Absolutely. But not in the way we've been using them.
Right.
The pediatrician should be the backup for when you can't handle it or you need some extra help. So that's really the big thing. We want to provide those resources to educate parents. And we say, start educating yourself now So if little Johnny, does get cuts and bruises or whatever, then you know, how to clean a wound, what to put on the wound, what to look for, pus and red and swelling and fever. Well, you might want to call the doctor, or, that I joke, it's really not that funny, but little Susie falls off a bike and you're concerned about Susie. Well, the doctor's like, well, her arm is broken. Yes, definitely go to the ER. It's
Exactly. That's where Western medicine shines, is, in the trauma and in
yes,
that space, but other than that, there are so many things. And, when I created Nurse Freedom Network and then Remnant Healthcare, we do things, we advocate, but we do that by providing people with information and education, because that's how you
yeah,
empower individuals. Otherwise,
yes,
you're just making a reliant and dependent society. And unfortunately, that's kind of where we're at. So we're all
right,
about, as you are at Mindset Kids, about informing people, educating people, and empowering them
yes,
to be
yeah.
able to do these things. So I think
And
it's incredible what you're doing.
that word is so important, and the word is empower, because
Yeah.
we have lost our own confidence in caring for our children. And we need to get that confidence back. And just, and that's why we also want the community, and the educational resource. And so, when we're like designing Mindset Kids, we had all kinds of, parent focus groups and, trying to figure out how to do things and everything. And I will say, pricing came in, and they're like, okay, well, what's it going to cost? And that, you know, I think my final price, I was in the shower when I said, I know how much I want it to be.
Yeah, yeah. Don't we all have these breakthroughs in the
Yeah,
shower?
I
I
think
bet
that's
that's how
when,
I have all mine in the shower
yeah,
as well,
that's
Kathy. It's
when the
good.
moment came. And I'm just going to say, I asked God for leadership,
Yeah.
skills and discernment and everything every day when I wake up. Give me direction, guide my feet. What do I do? So I knew that I had to walk into my meeting for Mindset Kids and tell everybody that, what I finally decided on. And um it's $24.99 a month is what it is. It's literally
Amazing.
$24.99 a month for your kids, whether you have one kid or you have 10 kids.
That's
And
amazing.
and that
People
gets
pay more
you,
than that for their streaming services. I say that all the time. So that is such an incredible,
yeah.
you can't beat that.
And I look at this as I want it to be an affordable, really no-brainer resource to
Yeah.
parents. And I honestly feel like that's fair for everybody, because everybody's going to get their resources, and as much as they want to participate in our webinars and those things. And then if you do need to contact the physician, we're not going to charge you for that. It's just part of your membership, and that allows everybody to have access to like-minded physicians. And I'll be real honest with you. It's, I had to look at the numbers, because I have to make sure that we cover our costs, and 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 I just have faith that everything's going to work out just great, and everything's going to be perfectly fine. And, so far everything's working fine. And we just wanted to make this, affordable for everybody. And I do have to say, it is $49 to join. And then we send you your handy home kit. That is a one-time cost, but and
Well worth
that's,
it.
that's in there. There is an opportunity for extended care visits for children who are like, they have chronic conditions, where we can actually do more, like, gut microbiome testing, or we have to send off for labs, or chronic diabetes, or those things. And those are 175, but it's not that many that we care for that way. But we also have a state by state directory for For example, if you live in North Dakota and you need a chiropractor in that area, then we will help find a like-minded chiropractor in your state where you can actually go do some of those, hands-on in-person visits or holistic dentists in your area, some of those things, because, we are limited by telemedicine. And so people just need to know that with that understanding. And we do have a brick and mortar in Tulsa, Oklahoma, where a lot of our Oklahoma patients come and the surrounding states. And I would love for anybody to come visit us anytime in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So that option is available.
That sounds amazing. I want to come to Tulsa, Oklahoma, and just check out your clinic. I'll tell you.
Absolutely.
This has just been, the amazing information that you shared. And this is going to be an incredible option that we are going to be putting out there for my listeners, my followers. We'll be doing a follow-up Substack on this as well. But we've got just about a minute left, so not a whole lot of time. But I do want you to just kind of put it out there. Where can my listeners find Mindset Kids?
Absolutely. If you go to mindset-kids.com/remnant, and that way Kimberly will know that you guys heard it on her podcast. And again, it's mindset-kids.com/remnant. And you can contact us via our website.
That's amazing. And I will be sure to make sure that we will put the link to that website in the show notes that will accompany this episode. Cathy Meehan, thank you so much for joining me. It has been a pleasure having you, and I'm sure I'm going to have you back again.
Thank you.
And that is all the time that we have for today, friends. But remember, we are here on the air 5 days a week, Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern, with a different nurse host daily. You can also catch the encore at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Please be sure to tune in and listen to myself and these courageous nurses. As we walk you through all of these hot topics, we will empower you with information and education. We will advocate and we will stand in the gap for you because we are nurses and this is what we do. I'm your host, Nurse Kimberly Overton, and you can find me here every Wednesday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern. Until next time, be safe, be well, and God bless. Remember, we are in a war for truth. We are putting out a bounty on the real misinformation and exposing the purveyors of propaganda. No topic is off limits as we shine our lights and expose the darkness.
It's time